Let's try it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Preppers for Gaming videos. We're gonna kind of rewind the show back to the beginning, and and start you guys out fresh for our new viewers who are just getting into the whole prepper thing. Our friend Cindy had a bunch of questions for us where to start. So Bo and I thought, and by the way, here's Bo, my good friend and co-host on these shows. Uh, how you doing, Bo?
Oh, I'm dealing with some technical difficulties, but I think we're all right. And I'm really glad that Cindy sent you these questions because I don't know about you, but I think that starting, preparing for a disaster emergency can be daunting. And what I had a teacher that used to say that hoping for the best is not a plan of action. So let's do a little bit more than hoping for the best.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've we're gonna hey crafting, what's happening, buddy? We're gonna recover some things that we've probably already talked about, but for the new folks who are getting into this, so they don't have to go back to the beginning, and to maybe come at it from a little bit of different angle, more focused on the people who've never prepped a day in their life and really want to get started to be prepared. I was just talking about the old Boy Scout motto. Be prepared, always be prepared, whatever it is exactly. That's sort of disappeared recently, or at least in the last 10, 20 years. That whole notion is now, sort of, looked down upon like you're some kind of weirdo for prepping for the end of the world. We're not prepping for the end of the world. We're prepping for any emergency that might come along. You wanted
Yeah.
to add something there, Bo?
No, no, no. I'm agreeing with you. What I think that you talked about the last 20 years. I think that with the advent of the always on cable news, with the advent of this mindset, this fear mindset that it's so prevalent in our society. What I'm trying to encourage people to do is to take a step back and take a breath. And you talked about being prepared for everything. What I want people to start with is to say, don't not to feel overwhelmed about preparing. And I think that if you have the possibility of disasters or dangers or emergencies in your area and in your life that I might not have even ever heard of. So instead of taking a checklist approach to preparedness, what I want people to do is sit back and think about your specific situation. And I think that it'll be a little less overwhelming, trying to make things as easy for people as possible. And I think the best way to do this is to be as specific as possible, because I think you're right. I think that something happened. I don't know if it's just their internet society or our political situation or our comfortable living, but we've lost something as a people, and I like to help people get back to that.
Right. Getting back to that what happened. I'm not gonna point fingers or anything, but it really does seem like only. Hey, Raven, how's it going? It does seem like only a certain demographic is even remotely interested in being prepared. Everybody else falls into certain categories of as long as Starbucks is open, everything's fine. Um, Kind of demographic where the people who prep and try to stay fit and healthy and prepared and well stocked are kind of you can almost now look at a person and go, I bet they're a prepper, versus these guys will not make it. You know what I mean? Do you think you could at your local Walmart? Do you think you could pick out one prepper in the crowd?
Yeah, I do think that there is a certain kind of confidence that comes from preparation. I just want to make sure that for your viewers that confidence is not hubris, right? If we're going
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
confident, let's be able to back it up, and let's have that kind of calm, resolute fortitude that that we used to be known for, right? We're steadfast, we're resolute, we're prepared. We can deal with any emergency, from a broken toe to losing your job to earthquake or wildfire or economic collapse, right?
Hmm.
And so that's why we really wanted to I want to kind of dispel that feeling of being overwhelmed about it, and say, let's make a plan to get you from zero to hero, and to specifically address all of the viewers' concerns. Well, what about this? What about that? Well, what is your biggest concern? I mean, is it something like losing your job, or do you have parents that are infirm and they're an economic um, create economic burden? There are a lot of other emergencies and disasters that we need to think about besides just the sexy stuff, right? I
Hmm.
got my gas masks ready and ready for to live in the world of Fallout. I hope that we can be a little bit more grounded,
Hmm.
and be ready for things like, heaven forbid, another economic shutdown related to a pandemic. I hope that people learn something from the last 3 years, and that they all have a closet full of toilet paper for next time. Things
Absolutely.
things like that, things that are again very realistic, very probable and possible, and things that we can do to dispel feelings of being overwhelmed. You can't you can't survive the world of fallout. I don't want to survive the world of fallout necessarily. I would not mind thriving in the world of fallout, but I think that we're going to get to thrivalism versus survivalism eventually. But that's going to be shows and shows and shows down the road.
Absolutely. One thing I wanna hit absolutely first is your physical fitness. I need to take heed of what I'm about to say. If you've got that 35-pound pack and you can't carry it 100 yards, you're not ready. You're not ready for anything, let alone any sort of survival. You need to go out, get some fresh air, and maybe do the hard thing, which the most basic of things is, if you've got that bug out bag, see how long you can carry it in a day. How far can you get with that prepper bag? And you'll notice that right, your first instinct is right off the bat to start tossing things out of it to lighten that load, and that's probably not a horrible idea. But if you've got any sort of property, or even just go for a walk with the biggest backpack you can carry around your neighborhood, and see how many times you can get around the block, and or out to the park, and how many hours of a day can you carry it before you're completely exhausted, spent, laying gasping for air because you overdid it. If you can't do the most basic of things, which is walk with your load, you have got some other things to worry about and to concern yourself with. Besides, going out and getting some fresh air and sunlight will remind you of what you're doing it all for, is to enjoy your life, to live a life that is free from all the worries, because you've prepped, you've prepared for the worst, hoping for the best, and now try to remember always what you're trying to strive and thrive for, which is the ability to go out and enjoy your actual life, instead of spending all of your time indoors in front of a screen, or even the mental gymnastics of prepping. Go out, get that fresh air, enjoy the family, and just do the barest minimum of physical thing that's going to be required.
You've actually, Shadow, you really inspired me there. I thought of something I hadn't thought of in probably 10 years or more. Um, Even before you talked about the exercise plan, I want everyone watching to get a pen and paper right now, and write these things down for me. This is you're talking about an assessment, right? You're going to assess your health. Assess assessment. That's your first tool. And then after that, diagnose, right? You're going to diagnose your assessment. I can't walk for 5 miles with my plan. My diagnosis is I'm going to walk every day. Now you're going to make a plan. What's your plan? My plan is to get my ruck on, and I'm going to walk for 20 minutes, 3 days a week. Walk for whatever that is. You can assess, diagnose, plan, intervene. Intervention is when you actually get out and implement your plan. Now, the last part is evaluate. And you've heard me talk about this before related to our gaming, our Friday night game. Whenever I get done with the game, I always ask, what did I do well? How could I improve? What did I do well? How can I improve? Evaluate your plan and adjust. If you've seen guys that like go out and hike the Appalachian Trail, like you said, they're always lightening their load. What can I get that works twice? What can I get that works for this and this? Evaluate your plan and go back to the beginning again. So you can do this for anything. You can do it for your finances. You can do it for your health. You can do it for your preps. You can do it for anything. So you mentioned that, and I think that you made a really good point. Assess yourself, and don't practice self-deception.
Absolutely.
I
And a
know
good
the
pair
good
of shoes.
thing.
Make sure you got a good pair of shoes or boots when you're doing it, because that's the ground floor literally of all your preps. If you're running around in flip flops or barefoot, you are so far off the mark. You're never going to make it. Make sure you have that good pair of boots that are comfortable, little worn. Brand new is cool, but make sure they're comfortable. The right socks before you set on that first foot forward. Again, ground up. What are you going to need? Well, you're going to need a good pair of boots. Just absolutely right off the bat. And I don't mean cowboy boots, because not going to do it. Cowboy boots have a very specific purpose, and it is not hiking. Get yourself a good pair of hiking boots with good treads, good soles. If you need an extra, insert to make them a little bit more comfortable, awesome, because you're not going to get very far in flip flops, cowboy boots, or high heels, or whatever it is you're most comfortable in. You need something that's going to protect one of your most important physical attributes, and that's your ability to get around.
I actually,
Even if you're going to be sheltering in place, you're still going to want to be able to run, pivot, etc. At the drop of a dime.
I had a newspaper article in here from a few years back about the earthquakes in Haiti, and what the most significant causes of injuries from the earthquakes in Haiti were injuries to the feet, walking around on the litter and rubble in the aftermath of the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And people that live in the tropics tend to not have sturdy shoes by virtue of the weather and by virtue of money. So let's talk about, again, I think shoes is a good place to start. So what do you need? I'm going to start with an anecdote. Now remember, the plural of anecdote is anecdotes and not evidence. But I'm going to share with you an anecdote. My father-in-law, I might have shared this story already. We had a lot of bad winter storms this winter, probably the worst since I've lived here. And that's been 22 years. But the winter storms knocked out the internet, but not the electricity in a lot of areas. So he went to a gas station to get diesel fuel for his truck, and only people that had cash could buy anything because the electricity was up, but the internet was down. So I think that there are a lot of simple things that we could do to be prepared. What I'm going to call this is basic level prepping, right? What does a basic level prepper need? A basic level prepper needs some food at home. A basic level prepper needs some cash at home. A basic level prepper needs, like you said, a good pair of shoes, maybe a couple of extra cans of gasoline, a way to stay warm, and water, right? Something for like a weekend. We're going to start low, Start low, go slow. Maybe cans of food that you could eat without heating up. Cans of canned soup, SpaghettiOs, chili, spam, whatever
Corned
it is.
beef hash.
Whatever. Okay, now when also whatever it is that you already eat. An emergency is not a good time to find out that you don't like Dinty Moore beef stew. Let's find out now. Find out now because I want people to be as comfortable. I want prepping to be comfortable and fun. So it's like, oh man, I got to eat another can of refried beans. I freaking hate refried beans. Well, you shouldn't have bought refried beans while you still had a choice. Corned beef hash. If you like corned beef hash and there are case lot sales in your neighborhood, buy a case of it during the case lot sales. Most grocery stores have case lot sales once or twice a year. It's usually in the spring and in the fall. Rice, lots of rice. Well, Rick, if you like rice, buy rice. If you don't like rice, don't buy rice. I'm trying to encourage people to buy things that they already like.
What's up, Rick?
So there are things that I like and that I buy. And when they go on sale, I buy a case of it because it's simple. Now, I want you to have enough food for you and everyone in your whole family to last a weekend. You're going to shelter in place. We're not going anywhere. This is our first basic entry into prepping. Right?
Real quick, I want to make a quick little note on the canned foods. Believe it or not, and I've done it. I've done the taste test, as it were. A lot of things like chili, spam, corned beef hash that are not the name brand, the generic, as it were. Even the SpaghettiOs are the freaking same, as far as I can tell. If you cooked up 2 batches of corned beef hash or chili, chili is different because sometimes it will have a different flavor, but it's still pretty much the same damn ingredients. But with corned beef hash, spam, and most chilies, I'm gonna go with the generic one because it's like $1 to $2 cheaper per can. Again, I live in California, the most expensive place in the country to live. So your results may be better, your prices, etc. But if you're gonna go with the canned foods and throw some dozen to 1,000 cans in your larder, don't worry about buying the name brand, especially like spam. Because spam's an acquired taste to begin with, and if you like actual spam, the generic is the freaking same. Okay, it really is. And sometimes they're even made by the same companies, but they just have different quality, micro qualities that they consider in their factory, and they'll go, okay, well, this is getting the other label just because of whatever reason, and you'll never be able to tell the difference. You rip that label off the can, and you take a bite. You're just going to be happy that you have it, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I don't actually have French's mustard. Oh no, I can't eat this because it's the generic mustard. Get used to it. You will thank me later.
So while you're at the dollar store picking up your crafting assignment for the Shadow and Son show this month, check out their canned food section and see if there's anything there that you think you can't live without. Right? Start eating it now. Work it into your diet. I'm a big fan of eat what you store and store what you eat. There's really no good. I've heard horror stories, people buying food storage, whether it's like bulk wheat, bulk rice, bulk beans, and they have it their whole lives, and then that person dies, and their kids throw it out because they don't know what to do with it. We're starting at the basic level. We're gonna get you ready for a weekend without power. We're gonna get you ready for whatever that thing is. That's the most common thing on your threat matrix. Here, like I said, we've got blizzards 2 or 3 times a year, and sometimes they shut the city down for a day. Usually we don't lose power, but sometimes we do lose internet or other things. Try a month in place first. High calorie, fat for that energy. Well, sure. I'm trying to get people ready at the beginning, right? I don't want people to get overwhelmed by thinking that they're going to have to eat this stuff for the next year. Same thing with water. If you're the kind of person that buys bottles of water anyway, if you like bottles of water, keep one case for each person in your house. And you got to rotate it because the water will evaporate out of the bottles, even if it's someplace that's cool and dry. I've put bottles of water in my basement, come back a couple years later and find the bottles have crushed slightly because the water evaporates out of them. So you've got to rotate it. If you don't, if you like the blue 5 gallon barrels, you can get a couple of those. Again, we're just trying to get you ready for a weekend without power or a weekend without a
The
weekend
internet.
with your emergency.
Yeah, I mean, think of how many people would throw a tizzy fit just not having the internet for a weekend. Imagine not being able to flush or have power. No light. Oh wow. It gets dark here at for me right now. It's getting dark at about 8 o'clock. But imagine it's getting dark at 6 o'clock and you're nowhere near ready to go to bed. And there's literally nothing you can do. You don't have any candles or a flashlight just to get ready for bed, which could, because of your own biological clock, be 4 6 hours away, and you're stuck in the dark bumping into crap.
Right. So
Raven, there is canned cake. Believe it or not, there is canned cake. It's not great, but it's cake and it's in a can. But you can also find other things that can suffice instead of cake.
I'll tell. I knew a fellow down in Texas who was the king of preparation. I mean, this guy had like a Connex boxes on his property that were climate controlled, and he had he had inverters to store power before it was cool, before there was any such thing as a Tesla wall. Yes, Rick, we're going to get to the cash in a minute, but this you can. Here's what you can do. Okay, you can get online fairly cheap the thick mylar bags. So you're going to get a thick mylar bag, and you can take packages of Oreo cookies or Little Debbie's and put them inside the mylar bag with one oxygen absorber. You're going to take your clothes iron. You're going to put it on the highest non-steam setting, and I use a steel level, like a carpenter's level, and put the bag on the level and iron the bag shut. And yeah, you can store your Oreos or your Little Debbie's for years that way. Now that's beyond the scope of this show, but yeah, you can do it. You can easily store a pack of Oreos or Twinkies or Little Debbie's or whatever for years and years. What I recommend in that case is actually not storing sweets, but store the ingredients or some cake mixes. If you have a gas stove or even a gas even a gas camp stove and a Dutch oven, you can make a cake mix pretty easy. So when the cake mixes go on sale for like $1 a piece, I'll buy 6 or 7 of them because comfort food matters, even in a weekend disaster. Now, Brian, cash, cash, cash. Here's what I want you preppers to do. I want you to get 100 crisp $1 bills, and I want you to put them aside for instances when you need cash. Why crisp $1 bills? If the power's up and the grid is up, you can always raid vending machines. You know where the vending machines are? You're on the, anything happens, start shoving those $1 bills in the vending machine and empty it out. So always good to have some cash. Whatever it is you think you need. I think for a weekend, and without putting an undue burden on our people, I think 100 $1 bills is pretty freaking awesome. So I want you to get 100 cans of food, 100 bottles of water, fuel. I want you to get some fuel for your car or your truck. And I want you to get a kerosene or a white gas stove, both to cook on and to keep you warm. Now remember, you can't use white gas or kerosene if it's not well ventilated. Please don't do this in your bedroom or in your apartment or in your house because the threat of carbon monoxide poisoning is very real. And every year people do die from carbon monoxide poison. Rotate it. Yeah, that's right. Whatever you have, I want you to eat what you like. You got to rotate. You got to rotate your stuff. You got to rotate your water. You got to rotate ammo. Rotating ammo, it depends on how it's packed. We're
Yeah,
gonna get
you can go sometimes 5, 10 years or more, depending on
30, 40,
the.
50. When my dad was in Vietnam, he told us stories about small arms ammunition that had been packed 25 years before during World War II. If you keep ammunition, keep it in boxes that aren't prone to humidity. You'll probably be fine as long as it doesn't corrode. Coffee can is a cake pan. There are I've seen. You can look up Google coffee can bread, and the old coffee cans. You can cook loaves. You can cook loaves of bread in there.
I'd love to see this recipe, Bar. If you could send it to me on Discord, I'll try and find a way to repost it elsewhere. But I'd love to have that. Yeah,
Yeah, you can
exactly,
also
Brian.
make
You
it
also
for
need to know your
the
body. If you're susceptible to cholesterol issues, then you don't want to be messing with lard, or if you're diabetic or any other sort of health issues, you absolutely need to be aware of that, prepare for that. And there are some places out there where you can actually buy prescription medications online with a video uh, doctor's meeting, so you don't have to leave your home. Because I'll tell you this, I know from experience right now, if you go to your regular doctor and you say, hey, I need extra this, even if you're telling them you're going on vacation, you need to have extra, they're like, tough shit. They will not fill your prescriptions, at least here in California, for anything other than the bare freaking minimums. I use an inhaler, and trying to get an extra inhaler is like I'm asking for heroin. They're like, no, you don't need it, you don't get it. So I've gone to the like Primatine, which is an over the counter, and I would actually recommend, if you ever get the chance to get one in your first aid kit. It's actually, because of the ephedrine or whatever it's called. Um, Even if you don't have lung issues, it can actually come in handy as a one-time sort of a boost, if you know what I'm saying. It wouldn't suck to have it, especially if you do come across someone who needs a regular inhaler, doesn't have it. I'd rather take the chance than to suffer through some sort of asthma attack, because I've been there and done that back in the day, long before there were inhalers. And yeah, for the 25, $30, it's not a bad thing to have. But if you need regular medications and your doctors are not forthcoming and don't want to help you out, and antibiotics, even if you don't have an infection, you know, getting these kinds of things. There's even kits out there that you can get that are like broad spectrum first aid kits that do include these things that you can get through the mail, that normally your doctor would just, freak the hell out if you asked for.
Right. And I'm hoping that nobody needs anything like that for your weekend without power, or weekend without, for your short term disaster, right? For the kind of stuff that for the people that have nothing, if you're starting from zero, then I'm hoping that you don't need that. But eventually you'll want to think about things like that. Eventually you'll get there, right?
Yep.
Certain kinds of cake don't need a proper oven. Okay, so cheap and easy. Go out. That's nice. Uh, I was actually at a thrift store about a month or two ago, and I found a Coleman dual fuel stove for like 15 or $20. I didn't even have to replace any of the valves in it. If you know those old Coleman stoves, you have to get the pump replacements. It had a little bit of rust on it. I knocked the rust off with some steel wool, and filled it up with white gas, and it was good to go. A Coleman stove or a kerosene stove like that you could cook on when there's no power, um, are fairly inexpensive, and I don't really see why there's any reason why you can't have something like that, even if you live in an apartment, even if you live in something small. They're only about 2 feet wide and about 6 or 8 inches tall. the old green Coleman stoves. If you
Mhm.
beat the bushes, you might even know someone that has one they don't use anymore. My father-in-law gave me his when he decided that camping wasn't for him anymore. He's like, I'm never going to go camping again. Do you want this? Yeah. Well, now I have three of them. What am I going to do with three Coleman stoves? I'm going to set them up and I'm going to have, three or four pans going and I can cook breakfast for my neighbors too. Right?
Mhm. Or here's the thing that it occurred to me recently. I've got two refrigerators, and I'm working on picking up a deep freezer. 7 cubic foot, just a freezer, right?
It's the freezer.
What do
Right.
you do? What do you do when the power goes out and your fully refrigerator or refrigerators are stocked?
You
You
eat
guys know
all the
what to
ice
do?
cream first.
Okay, you know what
No,
else you do,
actually,
right?
what you do, if it's short term, again, if it's a weekend, what you do is you don't open it because they tend to keep cold very well. And you got to be like when you were a little kid and your mom said, "What are you doing looking in that refrigerator again?" You just looked in it. You got to make a plan and know what you're getting out of the fridge or freezer before I'm going to go in there. I'm going to get this roast out. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to try to keep it as much cold as possible.
Right. But then what?
Then that's next week's show, right? We're trying
Well,
to we're trying to start at the very beginning, and I'm trying to get people ready for things that are going to happen without getting too overwhelmed.
all
If
right.
things break,
I'll write that one down for next week. Uh,
what happens when you get to? I mean, eventually we're going to buy generators, right? Eventually, we're all going to buy generators. Natural gas generators or propane generators that are hooked up right up to your house. Handicapped family members make for challenges as well. If you have any kind of medication, like I'll tell you that people talk about, it's a little bit off topic. People say, "Hey, you got to bug out. You got to go somewhere. You got to know where you're going, brother." I'm just getting my kids. My youngest boy is 6. The only way I'm going anywhere is if it's the end of the world. I'm going to hunker down, batten down the hatches, and stay right here. Why? Because you ever tried to go anywhere with a 5-year-old? It sucks. And they were younger than that. This is not the road. You're not Cormac McCarthy. You're not Mad Max. Let's be real.
I,
Let's
I
tone it
just
down. Let's tone it down just a little bit. We'll get there eventually, but I'm trying to keep everybody on. I don't want to scare Raven. I don't want to scare any of our new people. We're going to get through this together. 0 to hero. We're starting at 0. Let's build up. Let's Here's one. And okay, this is not 100% legal and I'm not going to source anything. But I will tell you that you can still get non-carb compliant gas cans if you look, because carb compliant gas cans suck. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to have a 5-gallon can of gas and 10 gallons of kerosene. You put Pride in the kerosene and you put Stabile in the gas. Gas with Stabile will last about a year. Every year, you pour the 5 gallons of gas into your car and you replace it. 5 gallons of gas will last you a weekend. There's really no reason why you can't have a 5-gallon can of gas in your shed. Don't store it in your house. Don't store it in any room attached to your house. Don't store it in your attached garage that's in your house. Put it in your garden, shed in the backyard, right? But five
if you
gallons
can.
of gas and 10 gallons of kerosene will last you a really long time, right? 5 gallons of gas will last you a weekend, unless you've got a monster truck. So it's easy to do. It's not expensive. Get a decent gas can.
Not yet, crafting. At some point, they will, or could, I should say, in the worst case scenarios, consider that hoarding and technically, a really really bad thing. But let's hope we never get to that point. That's more of a Rifts,
Yeah,
RPG game world mentality kind of thing.
there,
Or
there have been hoarding laws in this country in the past, like during both world wars. There could be hoarding laws in the future. What I tell people is that if you are buying things now in a time of plenty, it's not hoarding, no matter how much you have, because everybody else can buy it too. I'm not buying out the whole grocery store. I'm buying 3 extra cans of Spam and 2 extra cans of stew, and I'm going I'm going down to the gas station and I'm getting 5 gallons of gas in a gas can. Easy peasy. Now, what I'm trying to impart upon you, what impart is to not take a sort of a checklist mentality. I don't really like checklist mentalities. I want to try to tell people develop an attitude and a mindset that is better. I see these checklists from like FEMA, from the
I've
American
got
Red
one on my
Cross.
refrigerator.
What's that?
I've got one on my refrigerator. I've got one on my refrigerator. I got from a gun show, and while it was helpful, it's also a little diluting. You know, you think you're okay. I got everything on the checklist. I'm good. Uh,
I'm done.
you're not. You
You know,
you just started. You're
and
in at the ground level. You made a good solid landing, but now what do? Now that you're in, enemy territory, so to speak, you need to know what to do
it's not
with each and everything.
individualized. It's
Right.
not individual. It's not individual for you and your family. Eventually, I think maybe next. I talked about building a threat matrix, and if you're familiar with any kind of corporate assessments, people always talk about building a threat assessment matrix. Usually, it's for things that are not related to preparedness. It's things like IT security or your budget or whatever. But if you make a graph, and if on the x-axis you put the the probability of a disaster from 0 to 10. What's the probability one? A meteor strike. That's gonna, that'll probably never happen. That's the probability. And then on the severity axis, which is your y-axis, it goes from 1 to 10. You could put that meteor strike up at like an 11, and then you multiply the probability times the severity, and you prepare for the ones that score the highest. Right? For example, I said a job loss from you would score a 15, but a blizzard would score 24. So I'm more likely to prep for a winter blizzard than I am to prep for losing a job. I scored a severe illness of 16. So I need to prepare for illness more than I need to score for job loss. And you need to prep for what's likely to happen for you. Look in your neighborhood. I tell you what's scary. I've lived I've lived in like 6 or 7 states, and I've never ever lived someplace that wasn't within a mile or two of a railroad track.
Mm-hmm.
What about a chemical spill? We saw those in Ohio this year, right?
Yep.
How about a solar flare with a massive EMP blast that'll take out a global electric? Well, I would score that like an 11. A global EMP blast, is it going to happen? Probably not. Is it super severe? Oh, yeah, it's super severe. I just want you today prep for the things that are the most likely to happen to you without getting too. I love the Walter Mitty stuff, man. I love it. It's sexy as hell. I love the thought of being the only guy in my block that, I'm eating a chocolate cake while everyone else is, eating cockroaches, rats, whatever. They're eating each other. Exactly. We love that. But is it realistic?
Right. Has it ever happened before is a good way to look at it. Has it ever happened before in your area or on Earth? If it's never happened on Earth, then you might as well prepare, for winning the lottery as well, without playing the lottery, because, that too will probably never happen. But if you've had a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, if you had those things happen nearby, then it can happen again, and it's almost a matter of when, not if, in a lot of those cases.
Right. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get people. I don't want you to take a buckshot approach to preparedness. I want you to take a laser focused approach to preparedness. And then I tell you what, if you're ready for a weekend, then get ready for a month, and then 3 months, then a year. And when you're ready, when you can go for a year, then you can start getting ready for, the EMP strike, and how much money. I don't have the money to prepare for everything. I've only got the money to prepare for things that are the most likely. If I had the money to prepare for everything, yeah, I'd have a private compound in Cheyenne, Wyoming, because and a private helicopter to take me there. Sure, no, that's actually happened before. I remember there was one in the 1800s that was so bad it set telegraph wires on fire. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how would you prepare for that? You'd probably prepare for that by doing a lot of the same things that we're talking about now, but on a bigger scale, right? Whether the effect that EMPs will have on things like cars and the grid is debated. We don't really know how big it will be because it hasn't happened before. Um, what are you going to do? You're going to have your food, your water, your medical equipment, and you're just going to start scaling. Start thinking about things like scaling. You, like I said, you prepared for a weekend. Now prepare for a month. With infinite money, just make your own bat cave. Yeah, exactly. If I was
Right,
dealing
and
with,
very very few of us in this community have that. Um, and even those of us who are better or well off, still you have other issues that are going to get in the way. We're talking about starting small, no matter what your budget is. Unless you're literally already living on ramen, you know, daily. That's what you can afford. Then you know I wish I could give you something to really fix that, but I'm assuming if your internet's paid and you're checking us out, you're probably doing a little bit better than that, if not hopefully a lot better than that. We talked before about how I literally only spend about $5 to $10 a week putting stuff away into my prepper bag, or larder we call it,
right,
our closet full of uh, survival foods and equipment and gear. And when it comes to ramen, believe it or not, ramen does not keep very well. I found that out the hard way while rotating it. Um, it really does. It really loses something, at least in the flavor. So you may want to, have that, but rotate it as quickly as possible uh, before buying a pallet of it,
right.
because you will go through that point where you absolutely hate it, and unless you've got some really awesome addition to the recipe that you can always add to it to make it fantastic, you're gonna get to that point where you freaking hate it, and everybody else will know by then in an emergency. We're sick of ramen too, or we don't want ramen, we want something else, and that's a mindset you're gonna have to prepare for and try to get over if at all you can.
So we're talking about 100 cans of food, 100 bottles of water, 100 rounds of ammunition, and $101 bills. Easy peasy. We talked about tools before. If you're a tool user, a an inexpensive handgun or revolver or pistol with 100 rounds will do you for a weekend. Practice, practice, practice. Um, like I said, the little Taurus 856s are like, I think they retail like $250. I've
Would you recommend the $200 handgun, the $200 22 rifle, or the $200 shotgun?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. We're talking about a weekend situation. Can you walk around your neighborhood with a 22 rifle or a shotgun without drawing attention? Can you walk
Probably
around your
not.
neighborhood with a revolver or a pistol in your pocket without drawing too much attention?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just the situation. This is what the situation is. The situation is um, if there's a weekend where the police might be a little bit slow, or if I'm worried about, and this is, again, we're starting at the beginning. Starting at the beginning. I mean, even if it's something like a High Point or something, I don't necessarily recommend those. But if you're whatever you can afford, let's assume that your budget is at the bottom of the barrel, or let's say that again you've got granddad's old um, Smith and Wesson Model 10 or Colt Police Positive that you found, and it's not rusty and it looks like it's got a good lockup and good timing. Yeah, you can get 100 rounds of 38 special ammunition, and you're going to be fine for a weekend. Eventually, yeah, you're going to want to. Eventually, we could talk about firearm batteries. I'm a big proponent of the battery of firearms, which is a gun for like almost like a golf bag, but not right where you have something like,
Casey Jones style.
well, no, you have like a handgun, a shotgun, a 22 caliber rifle. That's
And
maybe like you have like a deep concealment pistol, like a little snub nose revolver, really small 9 millimeter. You can put in your really put in your pocket. But I'm just saying, if you 100 rounds of ammunition for whatever it is you have, 100. And then I don't know how you feel about liquid assets. I don't know if you like buying like junk silver. I know that junk silver has been really popular among preppers for like the last 15, 20 years or so. And depends
yep.
on, I don't even know what the spot price of silver is right now. Because I haven't bought silver in so long. But
It's actually very difficult to find right now.
if you do buy junk silver at spot or whatever is, I recommend dimes. Don't get anything bigger than dimes because they're too hard to trade.
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 dimes is like 8/10 of an ounce. Gold skyrocketed, silver less so. Again, if you're going to buy junk silver, I usually recommend it over bullion or foreign denominated coins, and I typically recommend dimes to start.
Yep.
Um, so 100 dimes is uh, pretty close to, like I said, usually about 80% of an ounce per 10. Um, but you don't want to try to buy a loaf of bread with a silver quarter.
No, good
Oh,
point, because
or an ounce
that's
of
going to
gold.
be a huge issue. That's why I actually, believe it or not, every time I go shopping, I always pay cash, and I never have exact change, if you know what I mean. Even if it's in my pocket, I'm collecting all my coins. I've got several containers full of one's all pennies, one's nickels, dimes, and quarters, because you never know what you're going to be allowed to spend, so to speak. If you try to use silver for a very small purchase, people are setting up tables outside their house to do bartering and that sort of thing. Handing them 25 quarters, you'll feel better about that than actually spending the silver and them not being able to make change.
So cash is king in an emergency, even in a short term emergency, like I said. So I'm collecting junk silver. Uh, Again, if you're gonna do it, if you've got the money, you can always go with 100 ounces. 100 ounces of rounds. 100 ounces of rounds would cost you a whole lot more. I mean, if silver is, I don't even know, $30 an ounce, then you're talking about $3,000 just in silver. And I don't want people to have to do that when they're starting to prep.
Right.
Um,
That's why I recommend hanging onto your coins.
100 ounces, pardon me, 100 rounds of ammunition, a 15 gallons of fuel, something to run or white gas. Again, white gas is already stabilized. 3 or 4 cans of white gas for your stoves and a 5-gallon gas can for your car. Again, if you go beat the bushes, you can find they are not legal. I'm not recommending you break the law. but I think carb compliant gas cans suck. Thank you, California, for inflicting that upon the rest of the country. Carb compliant gas cans put the gas all over you instead of where it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the law of unintended consequences says that gas spilled on the ground is worse than fumes in the air. Barter items. I'm not talking about barter items for the beginning prepper.
No, that's a next level. We will
I'm
get
not
to it,
talking
and we
about
have
because I
talked
don't want
about it.
people to spend money on things that they're not going to need right now. When we do talk about barter, I do have some fairly strong opinions on barter, but I don't want people to get caught up um, in. I don't want people to be overwhelmed. We're talking about getting your toes wet. I can tell you some of the things that I've done to get started, in the prep game. And if I was getting started right now, I'd probably get one of those Taurus 856 revolvers and 38 special, 100 rounds of full wad cutters, 100 cans of food, $101 bills, and 100 bottles of water. And then I would start working on something else after that. That shouldn't take you too much. No, that's fine. Crafting gamer. I want I want that Shadow and I started this because last week or the week before we had people come on and say, "Well, how do I start?" I don't
Right,
want.
and don't worry, Cindy. We are going to get to your questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, you want to hit those questions?
I do.
Okay, some of them are quite intuitive. Some of them are humorous. And when we get done with these, I want to go into like first aid and a little bit of that because that should be something that every house should have the fire extinguisher and the first aid kit. Um, just period. Especially if you've got accident prone folks or children or what have you. Or the husband that's always cutting off a thumb in his garage workshop kind of thing. Um, you should have some of that basic stuff. But her first question is, how long should I have supplies for? A year, months? Well, today we're going over just the weekend, but if you want to go a little bit past that, you can go into the month. Having everything you need for a solid month per person in your household is excellent. It is a fantastic way to think because for the most part, a lot of your situations aren't going to be longer than a month, and if so, then we can get to that. Uh, Welcome to the show, Jackie. If you want the link to come on in and say hi, I just say the word, buddy. We'd love to hear from you. My son's in Mexico right now, and he's popping in to say hi. So, what do you think, Bo? On how long should she have supplies for?
I think I don't know her living situation. I don't know if she's in an apartment or a house, multifamily dwelling, single family dwelling. I honestly, the real answer is how much space do you have? But for right now, I'd say let's work on 3 days. 3 days, unless there's something dramatic or dastardly, or unless I mean, if you live someplace where there are hurricanes, how long do you have to have supplies before hurricane relief comes? Hurricane Katrina taught us that no one is coming for you. You've got to be your own cavalry. So let's just say for sake of argument right now, 3 days. And then we'll build up from there.
So, Raven, minimum of a month, a good place to start. Then, if you can do that, excellent. For sake of argument, right now, let's go. Let's go 3 days without power and water. Everything's down, and the radio, so to speak, has said everything will be back on Monday afternoon, and it's Friday. And
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right. Let's just assume we're going to go with the best case situation for the bare minimum because you may go that weekend and go, God, I freaking hate this. I'm going to go full bore into, really getting ready because I've learned so much from the situation of 3 days, and I don't want to suffer through X or Y again. So I'm going to do something about it. I'd rather be safe than sorry. But for right now, we're going to go with 3 days: food, water, candles, flashlights, what have you. Uh,
Weather. You got to deal with the weather. If it's cold where you are, like I said, a space heater. It's got to be properly ventilated. Some wool surplus blankets. Like if you get your whole family in a room and light a candle, that'll generate a whole lot of heat, especially if it's a good sized candle. Just
right,
make
and there
sure
are
you
some.
get good
I
ventilation.
don't know if have you ever seen those tea light terracotta heaters? Have you ever tried those out?
I've not, but I've seen them. I haven't tried one yet.
I've actually done a little experimenting, and unfortunately, where I live, I have really high ceilings, so it's not ideal. But if you were to get one of those, it's basically a flat pan. You put some tea lights there, then you put a series of terracotta pots over that with ventilation so they can get air. They will freaking heat up a small 10 by 10 room to quite toasty. And the pan underneath keeps anything from catching on fire. And for depending on where you live, like 15, maybe $20, and 100 candles, you're good to weather the nights and parts of the days for like we said, a weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at that. I'm thinking maybe like even try to build one with terracotta flower pots, but that might be another discussion for another time. I'm gonna try that though. I've got some terracotta flower pots in the garden shed. We'll see
What
what
I
happens.
use is a cake pan, and I take 4 tea lights and sort of center it, put the tea lights in 4 of the cubbies, then put a terracotta pot on top of it because the shape of the cupcake pan allows air to funnel in through the bottom, feed the candles, and then out comes the heat. And I liked it.
Yeah, hurricanes aren't just in Florida. Yeah, they had a hurricane in New York a few years back. Remember? Yeah, the superstorm Sandy. I don't know why they didn't call it a hurricane. It was a hurricane. Isabel made from on DC. Yeah, I've seen hurricanes all up and down the Georgia coast when I was in Georgia. Um, Safer the FEMA camp. Well, hopefully there won't be any. We had camps here where I am after Hurricane Katrina. Believe it or not,
St.
the
Louis.
the government and the federal government's infinite wisdom decided to bring in refugees to one of the National Guard bases here, and be a pandemonium ensued. Believe it or not.
Wow, imagine that. I'm shocked. This is my shocked face.
This is my shock face. So without again, I don't want to get accused of being a Yahtzee on YouTube, but I will tell you for a fact that Hurricane Katrina was bad for lots of the country um, that wasn't just Louisiana and Mississippi. So yeah, let's just say right now, for sake of argument, let's start with 3 days. If you can do that and you don't mind it and you feel comfortable with it, then we can talk about stretching that out in the coming weeks and months.
And Helen says, please practice your flint and steel before you need. Yeah, I've got one on all my keychains. It's a really nice, neat skill to have, and you know, I hope you don't need it, but if you do, you got it. Otherwise, I would just recommend stocking up on a half dozen or so Bic lighters, not the
Yes.
cheapy lighters. Any kind of dollar store lighter, you might as well just light your money on fire because those things are crap. A good Bic lighter, I've got one right here. As a matter of fact, this lighter I've been using. I'm a smoker. I use it like 15 times a day. I've had this for 6 months and it's still going. So one of these is worth a case of matches or what have you, not as valuable as a flint and steel. But for the average Joe who doesn't, know how to do that, or they're just not getting the hang of it or whatever, every time
Yeah.
my
And
fires start, I'm ready to go.
Shadow's 100% right. Buy two and rotate them. You know.
And remember the one of the basic rules: one is none, two is one. Meaning, if you only have one, you barely have it at all. It will be gone and what have you. And if you have two, that's only like having one.
Yeah, I'm not a smoker, but I do have several of the big barbecue lighters, and I probably use it 6 or 7 times a year. I've had one for 3 or 4 years, and it's still going.
I've actually had a problem with those. I've
Really
had nothing but crap luck with the barbecue lighters. They
terrible.
tend to be made cheaper and crappier.
Yeah. I
and
got
I would
going.
rather
I
go with
use every
the
time I fire up the grill.
maybe it's because we use them for crafting and burning of styrofoam, and therefore we burn through a lot of the fuel. And once it gets down to a certain level, it just doesn't seem to have
That's
enough
a good,
pressure.
good experiment. But I've always preferred them to matches for starting my when I if I decide I want to smoke some ribs or whatever.
Hmm.
I've always
Well, I don't know what the Minecraft reference you're talking about, Jackie, was. Um, you'll have to elaborate for us.
next question.
The next question is, and I'll get back to the people in chat, but this one's a really quick answer. I'm sure we all can figure this one out. Is there anything I can do for radiation exposure? Not
Um,
really.
yes, okay. Let's back this up. Radiation. We used to have a whole department in the government that used to deal with this, but they got rid of it years ago. Was the civil defense? We don't have civil defense anymore for some reason. What do you do? Radiation is usually once you move yourself away from the radiation, it doesn't have any effect on you anymore. So with ionizing radiation, it's usually both too much and too long.
Sorry, Jack.
Um, yeah, stay away from radiation. It's bad. There are things you can do up front to prevent it. You could take like iodine capsules and those, but you've almost got to start with the iodine before you think you need it. So if you live someplace that's near a major Air Force base or a major military base, and you think that you might be a nuke magnet, then that might be a little bit higher on your threat matrix than someone who lives nowhere near a military base.
Yeah, I live really close to skunk works. If those things start flying, there's literally nothing I can do, and I will be, I will be a stain of ash on the ground before I could do anything about it.
And I live close enough to Hill Air Force Base that let's just say that I'm not preparing for it so much because it's going to happen or not.
Right. Mark Hockman, yes, Dollar Tree and dollar stores have the 12 packs of boxes of matches. Those are like, when it comes to fire, your absolute last line of defense. I would rather spend the money on the flint and steel than to have the matches, just because the flint and steel will last a lifetime, whereas those matches, you're probably going to end up having to use 2, 3, 4 matches at a time to get a good flame started. And these strikers on the boxes are crap. They used to make these really cool light anywhere matches, and
Yeah,
now they're damn near illegal for
yeah,
fear of terroristic uses, which is
yeah.
retarded. They actually claim it's because it's a fire hazard, and yet there's never been a single fire started from the shipping of strike anywhere matches. But there's these old books, a cookbook and a sort of a how-to book to make things that the powers that be would rather you didn't know about how to make using those particular types of matches. You can still get them, but you're going to pay about $5 a box.
Yeah, I
And
haven't seen them in years.
if you can find them, buy them all, and I'll pay back for them because I want them.
Yeah,
Not for the bad
striking the
things.
matches are one of those things that just kind of disappear. One of those things where you like wake up
Well,
one morning and go to the store and they're not on the shelves anymore.
They literally took them out because of what's in a certain cookbook and blamed it on they were catching on fire in the back of UPS trucks, which is absolutely a blatant lie. It's never happened. You cannot find a single case of where that actually happened, but that's how ahead of us they are in their planning for what uh, the average citizen might decide to do to survive.
If I had to guess, I would have thought it would have been an environmental issue. It seems like everything else has been taken off the
Nope,
market by the
nope.
green
You guys
movement.
can Google it right now, and you'll find out that they think that they're dangerous to ship, but you cannot find a real legitimate instance where it was dangerous to ship. They had been doing it for damn near 100 years, then all of a sudden it's a danger.
That's too bad.
And Crafting says, yeah, I'm one of those people who will be vaporized when the bombs drop. I live next to a secret military base everybody knows about, but the government keeps denying I get.
Do you live in Nevada? Next to a lake that's named after the person that marries the bride? Oh, the groom? That lake? Uh,
Could be, could be. And now let's go to Cindy's next question. If a blast has occurred of a radioactive nature, what can you do? I think the old grab your ankles and kiss your ass goodbye
there there
might
are
fall into place here.
there are still good civil defense. The manuals are still online in PDF form for free. Typically, if you can survive the initial blast and the initial fallout, you've got a pretty good chance. The whole duck and cover thing. I mean, do you have a basement? Hang out. Remember that there are certain things that can't be irradiated, like water. Water's not irradiated. It's the things that float in the water that are irradiated. Unfortunately, some things do get irradiated. That's a whole rabbit hole to fall down, Cindy. You can do a little, if your legitimate concern is a nuclear blast or a radioactive strike, like a dirty bomb or something like that. Yeah, I would recommend doing specific research and look for the 1960s civil defense manuals. They're all
She
available
also
online.
she also follows up with part of that question is, do I stay in my home or do I go to the woods?
Don't go to the woods. Okay, it's a trick question. What do they call people that bug out but don't know where they're going? Refugees. If you want to live like a refugee, you go to the woods. If you don't
Cue the
want to
Tom
live
Petty.
like Tom Petty and don't want to live like a refugee, fortify your house. If you've got the money and the means, fortify someplace else too. If you've got a vacation cabin that's been in your family for the last 100 years and you can get there and the roads to it are not going to be completely clogged up with refugees, bugging out has always been kind of problematic to me because to bug out, you almost have to leave before the thing happens. You have to
So
leave
true.
before the thing happens. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not Johnny Carson blowing into the envelope, and I don't. I'm sorry. If I were, then I wouldn't be here. I'd be living it up like Biff Tannen someplace with my millions of dollars.
Awesome. Let's hit up the next question she has. Approximately how many bottles of vodka do I need?
X plus one. Find out how many bottles of vodka you think you need and add one to it. No, but honestly, do you drink? If you like to mix up a vodka tonic or a martini or a screwdriver, before you go to bed, you want to keep that habit. Like again, we're preparing for a weekend. How many bottles of hooch do you need for a weekend? Two? I mean, are you going to go on a 3-day bender? Is that how you're going to survive this disaster? Is your name Hunter S. Thompson? Because I mean, I don't drink, so I mean, do I? Yeah. I would say your normal amount for a weekend. If you're
And
in the city, you
hell,
want to get
says
out.
it depends on where you live. At if you're in the city, you want to get out. Sure, bands
Maybe
of
no.
marauders will be a thing. That's. Those are both kind of later on down the road. Absolute last level of survival prepping. If that's literally a thing in the United States, we won't even be able to communicate with one another, and all bets are off. Literally, it will be dog eat dog kind of situation, and most of us, no matter how well we are prepped and prepared, when that sort of situation comes, we'll actually be some of the biggest targets out there and trying to fight off your entire neighborhood because you're the only guy prepping. You won't make it. They'll just burn you out. They'll burn your house down and they'll sift through the ashes looking for the cans of food that haven't exploded, and that's
When
all they'll be getting.
years ago, this would have been about 2000. I mean, before GPS was even really popular, before Google Maps was a thing, I got a copy of the National Geographic Road Atlas on like 10 CD-ROMs. And it had all the back roads and all almost down to the deer trails on it. I mean, the map of my state was one whole CD-ROM. And I was sure I was going to find a way out of my city. I was going to find a way out. And I popped that CD in and I started following every single road. And I tell you what, Shadow, with no joke, no lie, every single road out of my town led back to the two main interstates. I could not find a way out of this town that did not lead back to the two main interstates. So once you get back to the interstates, you're going to deal with, think about like rush hour times 100.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually when it's rush hour, only the folks that are working are trying to get on the road. And only the folks that work the day shift, but not the B shift or the C shift. Now imagine if everyone was on the road at once. You know, bumper to bumper, or people think about every time when there's a hurricane, and they've got to like open up both sides of the interstate to try to get people out, and it's still bumper to bumper. Unless you know exactly where you're going, exactly how you're getting there, you've got supplies prepped along the way, and you know that there's not going to be a lot of folks on that road. That's not defeatism, that's reality.
Yeah, if you're really worried about that sort of a situation, you might want to look into some sort of serious 4x4 vehicle with armor plate and spiked hubcaps and a chain gun mounted in the back, because that's the only way you're really gonna get out of a lot of situations using an actual vehicle. You're gonna have to deal with not only you know going over roads and making your own roads, but then the people who follow you. Because at some point, people will be like, this person has a clue, or they're panicking. But either way, they've got the right idea of getting the hell off the roads, and you're going to find people trying to follow you, and you do not want that. Let everybody else leave the freaking town, leave the city, and guess what? You got to run the place. How many Twilight Zone episodes have we seen where it's just somebody, walking through an empty town? Have you never wanted to do that? Well, here's your chance. Stay home, wait for all the morons, the idiots, the fear-stricken people to rush into the open arms of the waiting FEMA camps, where they will search you and take everything you own away from you and say, here's your meal for the day. Shut up and sit down.
And
With
Cindy,
hard pass.
hopefully not for the weekend. Remember, we're talking about getting you ready. We're talking about getting you ready for 3 days without power, right? For 3 days, you don't need a prep group. You don't need to prep all of your relatives. You don't need to dig a bunker in your backyard. You don't need to be prepared for the return of the Hale-Bopp comet or whatever. We're just talking about getting you ready for a realistic 3 days without power. And then eventually you can start thinking about things like I don't know, building a compound in Montana or something like that. I don't know.
Buying a private island or something like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, having your can't talk about having a private island anymore. That one guy ruined that for us.
And now Crafting Gamer says if you're looking for an alcohol as an anesthetic, you're better off with rubbing alcohol for more powerful and can be useful in other circumstances. For example, it's guaranteed to burn. Absolutely. However, I do notice,
Anesthetic?
thanks to,
How does rubbing alcohol work as an anesthetic? Did he
I
say
think he means as a,
antiseptic?
I think that's what he meant. Could have been
Rubbing alcohol.
the
Uh, I've
autocorrect.
I think for antiseptic, no, honestly, for an antiseptic, I don't think you can do better than a good bar of strong soap. Because in most instances, it is the mechanical action that kills the germs, not the thing that you put on it that kills the germs. So the rubbing, you're better. Let's see, what do you need? A good stiff washcloth and a good bar of soap. Stay clean, people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't recommend.
Funny
I
thing
don't
happened
recommend
though.
leaving except under very specific circumstances. Where
A
does
funny
leaving
thing happened during the pandemic. Rubbing alcohol and peroxide used to be the same price, roughly within about a dime, for the same amount of liquid in a plastic bottle. However, for whatever reason, because people were trying to make their own hand sanitizer, and the companies who make rubbing alcohol realized they can
Oh,
triple the price. Now it is literally triple the price of a bottle of peroxide. Where once you could get a good bottle of rubbing alcohol for about $1, now it's about $2.85. Whereas peroxide is still, for a really nice sized bottle, I think 16 plus ounces, is about $1.
the only thing I really like using rubbing alcohol for is for alcohol little alcohol stoves that you made like when you were in the Boy Scouts.
Right,
You
with
make
a
like
couple of
a
aluminum
little
cans.
can or a
Mm-hmm.
small paint can. We used to take the really small paint cans, like the quart size. You can buy them brand new at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you take a roll of toilet paper and roll and take the tube out and squish it flat and use it for a wick, and then pour the alcohol inside, and it makes a little stove you could actually put your canteen cup on top of. Um, we used to make. I think I've still got one under someplace, but
Nowhere, TCG.
no. It's fine. I'm just trying to think about what antiseptic. For anesthetic, I think that that bottle of vodka is your best bet
Mm-hmm.
for anesthetic.
Yeah,
Nothing,
I have to
nothing
agree.
else.
And
Nothing.
it's actually not a bad idea to to have at least for the weekend one bottle of hooch isn't a horrible thing. If you're not a drinker, maybe not so much. But if you are, or if you have people that you're going to be spending the weekend with, maybe not a bad idea to drop $10, 15, $20, whatever, on a decent bottle just to help pass the time, so to speak. If you know what I mean? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So her
Yeah.
next question: do you advise wrapping the windows in plastic? I'm not exactly sure where she got this idea or notion.
That kind of went around about 20 years ago during the whole, post 9/11 thing. A lot of folks were getting plastic put in their windows to stop like gas attacks and things like that. I can't believe it's. I think I even still have a big thick tube of like 3 or 5 mil plastic that I bought. I tell you what, if you have a house, don't buy plastic, but go out and get some cheap. What's this stuff called? Plywood.
Packing.
You
Oh,
can cut the plywood in advance to put over your windows if you need to, and having it pre-cut, uh, so that you could you nail it or screw it over your windows is not a bad idea. If you, especially if you live in hurricane country or tornado country,
or BLM territory.
you see people do that. Plastic, maybe plastic might be good for replacing broken windows. But I
Yeah.
do.
What about the old putting tape on your windows? What do you think of that one for hurricanes and things like that, where the windows for when the glass breaks, and if it's already taped together, you have less of a mess and less chance of the glass flying around and that sort of thing. I've always heard that that's something that people do in those kinds of situations. I've never lived in a place like that,
Either.
other than Virginia.
Well, I did live when I was in Georgia. Um, I was there for two hurricane seasons, and it never even occurred to me. So I never saw the neighbors do it or anything like that. Mostly when it was hurricane season, we just kept the radio on all the time. Kept the radio on for weather alerts, just all the time. So for window coverings, I don't think you need to spend money on plastic before you have all your other bases covered.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you live in a place where breaking glass is going to be an issue, obviously stay away from the windows. Maybe tape them, plywood them up, or what have you. Now, I would put the plywood on the inside, not the outside, if you're worried about certain things. One, it's an advertisement. If you start nailing up plywood, to the outside of your windows, people are going to be wondering, how much more are you prepared than just that? If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
I recommend
and people,
do what your neighbors do. If your whole neighborhood is, if you've lived in a place in, if you're in Jacksonville, Florida. See, we need to talk to our Florida boys about this because we do know a few. When
yes,
they're, if the whole neighborhood is putting up plywood, and a lot of folks have it pre-cut and they just use the same thing, the same pieces of plywood year after year.
right. Wind up radio, not a bad idea. They're small, portable, and
Battery radios, car
they also
radios.
tend to they have a flashlight, a siren, all those things. If you want to drop the 25, $50 on something like that, awesome, awesome. I would have one in the car, one in the house, one in the garage, etc. Not a bad idea, but don't go cheap.
Don't go cheap.
Um,
Don't go cheap
you
on
you
radio.
will regret it. I had one that I thought was the bee's knees. It had all these little functions, crank it up, and sure enough, after about 20 uses, it just didn't do shit anymore. It just
Right.
didn't work. Didn't know enough about it to get it to work, and it stayed in a drawer until I finally just decided to toss it and replace it with something much better.
Right.
If you're you get what you pay for, and when it comes to survival items, you've got three options: durable, cheap, and lightweight. Pick two.
Right.
I will always go with the light and durable. The cheap is not even an option for me because, again, you get what you pay for. Buyer beware, and I really want a quality item. With everything I buy these days, I'm at that point where I can do so.
Right.
Sometimes at the sacrifice of other things, but insurance is insurance. You want to be insured, you want to be prepared.
And
That is
eventually,
the cost of doing business.
like you said it without saying it. You said your radio crapped out after like 20 uses. Eventually, we're going to talk about testing your plan, right? Testing your plan, testing your gear, and if you've got gear that craps out after a weekend in the woods, well, then you know that you need to step up the quality, the brand, whatever. If you've got if your camp hatchet, shattered on a tree knot, then next time you've got to buy a better brand of hatchet. This as an example, whatever that thing is.
Right.
If your flashlight blew up, or if your folding shovel wasn't heavy duty enough, well, now you know. And it's better to find out testing than it is to find out when it's for real.
And I can't stress enough, if you've got a Army Navy type surplus store, get to be a regular there. I've got a military grade folding shovel that has survived several wars. And it's better built and sturdier than anything I could buy at Harbor Freight,
Right.
the equivalent.
Right.
If it says lifetime warranty on it, go test it out and beat the crap out of it. And when it breaks, go get a brand new one and maybe get a second one.
Right.
Because almost everything we've talked about, you can actually find at a surplus Army Navy surplus store better than you can on Amazon. If you're buying your survival gear on Amazon, you're already making the biggest mistake you can make, because there is no guarantees on quality or where it's literally actually coming from.
Nice. So, yeah.
Next question from Cindy. How do you clean your body after exposure to nuclear waste? I would just say embrace the mutant powers.
Take a roll on the Chalt random table of tentacles and see what happens. Running water, fresh water, soap, decon yourself, right? If you're exposed to anything, a nuclear, biological, or chemical, anyone that's been around it will tell you that you just need to take a long shower and flush as much of that stuff off you as you can. Use soap and be generous with it.
And vigorous.
Because that gets off, that doesn't take care of the radiation that's already inside your body. But unless that radiation has done damage to your DNA and caused cancer, it might cause, most people that die of radiation poisoning because the ionizing radiation kills the cell. And that causes, infection and other effects like a necrosis from the radiation. Removing the radiation source will allow your body to heal. So remove the radiation source and, change your clothes and
burn them.
Wash. So hopefully, in your weekend power outage, you haven't lost water. That's typically pretty rare. Most municipalities, the water is gravity fed. So as long as that tank can stay full, wherever that tank is, then you'll have water pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 20 years that I've lived in this town, I've never lost water. I've lost power briefly, but I've never lost water.
So Cindy's last question, and I quote, "If someone tries to break into my home, can I shoot the motherfucker?"
Where do you live? What time of day is it? Okay, I will tell you this. I don't care what the law says. If you do what you have to do to survive, hopefully you did like we did a couple weeks ago when you keep a lawyer on retainer. If someone breaks into your house, I assume they're up to no good. But I don't want to deal with that survivor complex that we talked about. So what I do is I get my kids and I go into my back room, and as long as they just take stuff, I can replace stuff. But if my life is in danger, yeah, you're gonna find out what I spent all my training dollars on.
Exactly. But the very absolute first thing is check your local laws, and whether it's day or night is a big one. Because if it's daytime, and depending on how they break in, if they try to sneak in through a window or something like that, they're probably a burglar. In which case, you hold them till the police arrive. If they batter down your front door, then they're letting everybody know they've got but one purpose, and that's harm. In which case, you blast them back out the front door, and then you drag them back in, and you wait for the police to arrive. And if the police are never going to arrive, you feed them to your dogs, hogs, or bury them in the back 40.
Um, can you,
But those are really extreme
Cindy? I would
circumstances.
say, can you? Are you prepared to deal with the repercussions? Have you thought about those things? That's a pretty serious question. If
Yeah,
somebody breaks in your house, I mean, hopefully there was a little tongue in cheek, but I don't know. What do you think,
yeah.
Chad?
Trust me, the very first time you shoot a person will never leave your mind. You will think about it more often than you want to, and not everybody's ready for that. Even if you just wound them and they get carted off to jail, you're still going to remember it for the rest of your life. And should you do the unthinkable and you end them, you're also going to think about that even more often. You're going to think about it every day. And for the first year or two, it will literally haunt you until I guess you do it again, or you get over it.
Yeah.
And I really hope that nobody out there in TV land ever has to experience that. It's really it's not for everybody, and there's a reason why we hire special people to do those kinds of tasks. But like I said, if you really think that could be a possibility, find out what the rules and laws and your location are, when it's okay, when it's not okay, and maybe post a sign, one of those clever, humorous signs with a handgun pointing at the reader, letting them know what's in store for them. Because at least you can say, "Hey, I warned you. I gave you ample warning. Right on my front door, there's a sign telling you what will happen if you cross this threshold without permission and ill intent with ill intent." Then your conscience should be clear, but trust me, it's still going to weigh heavily on you. Shoot first, figure it out later, unless in New Jersey, stupid castle doctrine. Right. Now, Helen, I'm sorry, Hal. I'm having a hard time reading the name, how to pronounce it. I'm just going to call you Hal, if that's okay with you, because I can't tell if that's two L's or an L and an I, no matter how hard I squint, and if that's a last name or uh, some sort of play on
Hailing,
words or
hailing the sky, thus helion, thus sky.
right. So just forgive us for that one. But I did not know shampoo and conditioner radiation binds the molecules in them. I've never heard that before. If that is the case, then yeah, I'll just go with the Lever 2000 or lava soap and scrub the living crap out of my entire person until I feel clean and safe, I guess.
I've got a book on it. I'll have to look it up.
Mm,
I didn't come
bacon. Now you
prepared
guys are
today
making
to
me
talk
hungry.
about nuclear
I,
waste.
I had a granola bar for breakfast, and now I want bacon. Thank you.
Bacon.
But
Uh,
everybody knows how much I love bacon. Um, if I could literally only be allowed to eat bacon for the rest of my life, you would never hear a complaint out of my mouth about bacon. Mm-mm. A bacon sandwich made out of bacon bread. Yeah.
the BLT.
Well,
Um,
just bacon bread. Just
bacon.
it isn't bread. It's bacon. It's just bacon on top of bacon with bacon inside the bacon, which is
Oh,
also how you create a wormhole to another dimension. But we'll go into that on the
that's
Saturday
what
night
happens
chat.
when you put the bag of holding inside the portable hole.
Yeah, you end up in a world of bacon.
You end up in a world. So I hope that we answered some of Cindy's questions, and I hope that she's a little bit more prepared or feels more prepared of what to do at the beginning. I think that it's really overwhelming for a lot of people. I think there are two extremes. Either they're completely overwhelmed and just say, you know what, if there's a disaster, I'm going to walk right into it and embrace the Almighty, or I'm going to, live like Mad Max without realizing there's a whole universe in between. And I
Mm-hmm.
want people to not be afraid of preparing, and I want people to look at it as a matter of steps and levels than as a matter of just getting the FEMA or American Red Cross checklist and say, look, yep, I did the checklist. I'm done. I did everything on the checklist. I don't need to do anything else. I'm good to go.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a way of life, but it should be a part
Mm-hmm.
of your
Doesn't
life. You should be prepared. Just, the old axiom is better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. The fire extinguisher, I've got several. I've yet to use one. I'll probably need to use it the moment I walk downstairs because I mentioned it. But having a fire extinguisher is the basic, ultimate epitome of prepping. You want to have a fire extinguisher. You want to never use the fire extinguisher for all kinds of reasons. But
right.
having the fire extinguisher in your toolbox, so to speak,
Right.
an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Another way to sum it up.
Yeah, if you have a
You
fire
know,
extinguisher in your kitchen, and then if you have an enclosed garage, have one in your garage, and maybe a small one in the trunk of your car. There you go. You've just maybe one in an outdoor shed if you've got an outdoor shed that's where you keep garden chemicals that have the possibility of actually combusting. You're out probably less than $300 on the high end, and you're good to go until such time as you have to have them inspected and recharged, right?
thanks, man. Thanks.
So, but I hopefully we can go through these things in steps and layers, look for specific issues, specific problems to, pardon me, yeah, specific problems to specific solutions. Look how smart I am. You said feed them to the hogs. Yep, they'll eat the whole thing, and then you can eat the pigs. No,
If you don't have any moral quandaries about doing so,
if
which
you if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments or find us on Discord or um, however you get a hold of people, because I'm really curious to know what questions people have, especially folks that are at the beginning of this. I don't have all the answers, but I would like to help people avoid making the mistakes that I made. I made a
you
lot of
know,
mistakes along the way, and a lot of
here's an
individuals are
idea. Let's see how many people we can get to accept the challenge of doing the weekend. Weekends, all we got the better part of Thursday, all of Friday. See what you can do over the weekend. See what you can do without, and get back to us. We're going to do another show. I'm not sure if it'll be Wednesday or Thursday of next week, depending on Mr. Bo's schedule. Because I'm always available. Pardon?
I can do both those days, depending on what time.
Okay, well, we'll pick one and we'll let everybody know a little bit ahead of time, or you can just, wait for the notifications because you hit all the right buttons. And please hit all the right buttons. And we'll see who comes back next week, and let us know, because I guarantee you it will raise a bunch of questions that we can help you with, to the best of our ability. We're not the definitive experts on the situation, but we've both spent more than our fair share of time uh, learning all of the 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 ideas and the thoughts and the strategies of prepping for all kinds of different situations and different reasons, etc. So maybe take up the challenge. Grab your family and go say, hey, we're going to rough it for the weekend, just because. Or if you're on your own, just do it. See what you can come up with and how it goes. We'll talk about it next week, and we will also probably go on to the prepping for a week. You think that's about the
Yeah,
next
well,
step?
let's the next level. I mean, however, like we can take this as far as you want. Like I said,
Yeah, let's go with a week, because a week is a definitively marked difference between 3 days to the week, and different strategies apply, different mindset, etc. Which is something we also need to go into. Being up, okay up here in the thinking meat is very important, because it's easy to succumb to despair and hopelessness and things like that, and that's one of your worst enemies. And if it's not your worst enemy, it's probably somebody in your immediate circle's worst enemy. And you need to be the pillar, the foundation, the rock that I'm sure somebody is going to count on, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your best friend, your roommate. Somebody there is probably going to be looking up to you, um, for that inspiration, that leadership, etc. And going into a week is way different because obviously it's more days, but it really does have a whole different set of challenges that we'll go into next week. Anything you want to lead us out with? Any words of wisdom? Yay, work's done. Mobius, glad to hear it. I'll check in when I get home, see if you're still on. No, Mobius, we're wrapping it up right here at about an hour, 45 minutes. Yeah, yeah. I started with ebooks about edible plants. Books, not ebooks, speaks to Texas silly. Yeah, you definitely want to have your books in hard form. Uh, I really can't say anything great about ebooks. They may be convenient for a little while, but at some point they disappear completely, and you've got nothing to show for it except what you can memorize. And I don't know about you guys, but there's a reason why I have thousands of books because I can't memorize one of them.
Right. There are
Free
things
Mike,
that are
you're on top
available.
of it.
I've got some stuff that I got in PDF form years ago. I typically print those out. PDFs are great if you can keep them, especially like on a jump drive or a thumb drive or some kind of external source. So they're always available. I prefer PDFs to others types of electronic formats because I do know that as long as I can keep them in an uncorrupted state on the computer, they're going to be there for a long time. But even then, I still have got some hard copy stuff. Um, I was just looking at some of the stuff I printed off, 20 years ago. And the thing is, I think that the websites that actually originally hosted those PDFs are gone now. It's amazing how many websites are not available anymore.
Mm-hmm. Knowledge is power, but I can't remember anything or everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I've got that CRS disease now too. You ever heard of that CRS disease, Shadow? And when you get a little bit older, yeah, it's the CRS. It's can't remember shit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what I can and can't remember. If you have a Sam's Club or a Costco, when you buy your pack of 12 cans of corn, get an extra one for your prep. The next time you go, get an extra pack of beans and so on. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
If
just
that's the
telling the
stage
fish
you're
will eat
in,
whatever it is they like. You just get. I'm not going to tell people. I mean, I've seen people go out and buy 100 pounds of hard red wheat and 100 pounds of beans and 100 pounds of rice, and even get it nice in buckets with mylar bags where it'll keep for 15 years, and then say, now what? You wasted that money.
yeah.
I mean, is it as bad
It's
as
funny.
sexual fluid? No, but same thing with they'll go out and buy, a case of ravioli. Do you like ravioli? No, I hate ravioli. What'd you buy it for then? Buy the stuff you like.
Yep, ravioli is good. It's
No,
funny.
if you like it, you like it.
During the pandemic, I was going to my local grocery store, and it was really starting to get kind of hairy. And I watched a guy walk out with only one thing, an entire flat of cans of Spam, and I went, "He's on it." You know, he was at least in the right ballpark. Now if you don't like Spam, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, Spam and eggs, freaking awesome.
I agree. I made spam and egg sandwiches for the kids last night because I had been out teaching my Wednesday class, and I got home at about 9:30 local time, and the kids hadn't really eaten anything yet, and they were, because it's summertime and they were too busy. But I opened a can of spam and I fried it up, and then I scrambled up about a dozen eggs, and we had some croissants, and I made croissant and egg sandwiches for everybody. It was great. It was great. Everybody loved it.
Yeah, yeah. I made corned beef hash yesterday. Freaking love that stuff. If you haven't had it, fried up kind of crispy, add a
Yeah.
little mustard if you like.
Yeah.
Freaking love that crap. And it, it's a really good comfort food with meat and potatoes that comes out the way it's supposed to come out. You can try eating it cold because that's the way you'll get it at any restaurant. If you ever go to a restaurant and they have corned beef hash on the menu, it's going to come out looking like it came out of the can, just microwaved, and that's not the way a real Irishman cooks corned beef hash.
Right.
So,
Right.
just saying, don't order the corned beef hash at IHOP. It's crap. It,
But if you have questions, include them. Like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell for more content just like this.
and do us a favor, if you know some folks that could benefit from this video, please, share the heck out of it, because that's what we're doing this for, is to, finally give back to all the people we've met out there. Thank you, YouTube, for allowing us to do this one thing that is something we're good at, and if we can help just one person to be better prepared for any one circumstance in life, it's going to make it all the worthwhile. You know, you never know when this kind of information will literally save a life, and if we get to do that, then it was all worth it. And with that, I'm going to say good night, good afternoon, good morning to you guys wherever you may be. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend of roughing it. I know that sounds kind of odd, but I really do hope you guys sort of, enjoy it. Make the best of what could otherwise be an awful situation. And don't forget our very first prepping video. If you're going to do it with a role playing game in tow.
Go
Bring your
with them.
favorite role playing game. Get your friends to rough it with a role playing game. And you know what? Before you know it, it'll be Monday, and you'll be like, damn it. Now I got to wait, 3 more days till the next prepping video, or I got to wait a whole week before I can, start another weekend of roughing it, or start a week of roughing it if you guys take the next challenge. But until then, folks, whatever you do it well. And until next time, happy trails.